All right, let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed lunch. My name is Scarlett Sieber. I am Managing Director at Catalyst Consulting Group, and we have an incredible afternoon ahead of us. To start, we have a group of amazing venture capitalists looking at basically the future of and what is deep tech. Who here knows what deep tech is by a raise of hands? Perfect. Well, this is going to be a learning experience for all of you then. We have a lot of different perspectives from many different people, and it's going to be great. There is really no precise definition. They'll each give you their viewpoint. So without further ado, let's bring the panel on up. We have Pedro, who is our moderator, and then with him we have Ernest, Alex, Borja, Hussein, and Javier. Let's give them a round of applause.
Everyone, thank you very much for being here. Thank you, guys. Well, my name is Pedro. I am going to be very quick about me. I am co-founder of a travel tech startup. It's called Minube. I also was working for Microsoft as the startup guy for the company here in Spain. And I am not an investor like the rest of the people on this table. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but a little bit quick because we have a very short time. So please.
All right, so just me, Ernest Sanchez, general partner of Neco Capital. We are a venture capital firm based out in Barcelona with offices in London and Madrid. We invest in different verticals, but with an edge in deep tech, not very deep, but we want to touch it a little bit. And I have a past where I invested in Israel in sort of a deep tech company. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Please.
Hi, Alex. I work for Caphorn. We're a VC fund based out of Paris, France. We have 180 million under management, and we invest only B2B tech, sometimes deep, sometimes less deep, but that's the B2B tech is our motto.
Please, Hussein.
Hi, Hussein. I work for an early stage venture fund in London called Hoxton. We do all kinds of things, everything from consumer to B2B to deep tech. We're kind of all over the place. If we think a company can scale up to be a multi-billion-dollar company from Europe, we want to be investors.
Hi, my name is Borja Breña. I am an investment manager at Nauta Capital. We are a European VC with offices in London, Munich, and Barcelona. And we invest in software companies, usually B2B SaaS. And some of them are obviously deep tech, and other ones are a bit shallower. But again, like Hussein, we want to be investors in the large software plays that are going to come out of Europe in the next few years.
So Javier Urecia from Bullnet Capital. We are a VC fund based here in Spain. We invest in Spanish deep tech companies, and we are investing since almost 20 years ago. We are running our third fund and trying to raise a fourth one. And I'm afraid that I'm the only one really investing in deep tech here. Yeah. Sorry, guys.
That's why I think that the first one to answer the first question is you, Javier, because we're talking about deep tech, but we asked you before, and you didn't raise your hand about what is deep tech. And the truth is that I think deep tech right now is like a label. So it's not a concrete thing, a precise thing. And I think that each one of us have a real personal opinion on that. So I think the first one, Javier, please, can you tell us what is for you deep tech? What have these startups for you to invest in them?
Well, so the business model is based on a differential technology. So these are companies that comes, most of them from universities or from research centers. There is a lot of research. There is a lot of intellectual property. The founders are scientists or people with huge technological experience. And as I said, they are more, B2B, so they are selling to other companies. And well, we are investing in software, but complex software. I'm not talking about applications or add-ons or light layers of software that are allowing services. We are talking about semiconductors. We are talking about optoelectronics, electronics with software embedded. So really things that are very difficult to replicate. It's not that the business model is very original. It's that there are a lot of years of research behind the company.
Okay, thank you. Borja, your opinion on that?
So that's the definition of deep tech. the question is that deep tech changes over the time. So back in the time, a simple ball pen was deep tech. Nowadays, obviously, deep tech is something like semiconductors or even farther, blockchain, biotechnology, you name it. So what one considers deep tech today might change, and in 10 years' time, something different. So that's why we can differ, and when we see an investment opportunity, you might not see deep tech, I might see some deep tech in it. Okay, so, and there's another thing that I could say is I totally agree with what Javier said, okay? So there's commercial innovation, there is technical product innovation. When it's really far, and innovation and the technical product side becomes an actual moat, you can consider it deep tech, but you cannot making it because of one specific feature that you're actually making it really far and advanced and basically give you 2-3 years or even more ahead of the competition, or that you can combine different features of technology that all in all gives you, a head start of 2, 3, 4, 5 years ahead of the competition. So it could be different features adding up to deep tech.
Okay, thanks. Hussein, your call?
Yeah, I mean, not much to add. I would say deep tech are things which are very R&D centric and where the IP is kind of the key distinguishing factor of the company. And they're usually working on something pretty novel. So that would be kind of my definition.
Okay, Alex?
Yeah, I guess we all have a different definition here, and I was asking my co-partners in the fund, and they were saying we all had a different view on it. I guess I'd go alongside what you guys were saying. It really hinges on the quality of the technology behind, the mode that it creates for anyone to try and copy. So typically the barrier to entry. And at the time of investment as an investor, I'd consider something deep tech because what I value the most and what I think the market will value the most is the technology at the heart of the product versus what we call more of an execution deal where it's really the go-to-market, the brand, and how you tackle the market, how you accelerate your growth, that creates the moat.
Okay,
Well,
Ernest, please.
everything has been said, but I would say that technology-driven companies, because we're talking about companies or investing. So actually, what Javier was saying, it's a lot of scientifics, doing things, but there is not just software, it's materials, it's engineering, it's biotechnology. So it's lots of things that we can just embed on deep tech. But talking about investing, so I would like more to speak about what kind of companies are subject to, to tackle one particular market using technology-driven solutions.
Okay, that's good. I think we can agree on impact as a main issue. When you talk about deep tech, right? We are looking for impact on the society, and I guess we agree on that. So talking about investments, and you can be first. What are you looking for when you will look for startups on deep tech?
So, well, actually, I mean, the problem when investing is the period cycle. So, talking about deep tech and considering the scientific cycle of the process. So, the funds we've done, we exist to last for 10 years, say so, and during 10 years, you cannot validate a deep tech model unless it's in a proper way or in a proper moment when you can actually invest. So we are a fund that we have to invest in Series A onwards, and in that case, the technology has to be proven. So it's not in a test mode. It's not a tech transfer. It's something that is out of the university and became a business actually. So at that point, we look for companies that the economics could exist, because in the end we have to provide returns. So that's something meaningful. But in the end, when talking on deep tech companies, we need companies that create impact, that they can change, from the root, and then the applications can be multiple things that on the B2B side can be applied on different sectors, verticals, and industries.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Alex.
Yeah, I have a similar problem because I invest Series A, Series B. Usually it's about accelerating go-to-market. The deep tech investments we've done are when we do seed, and occasionally we do that. And for example, we've done it in Ledger, and when it was about a digital wallet to protect your crypto assets. At the time when we invested in seed, it was quite novel, and we considered it to be quite deep tech. The same goes with companies we invested in deep learning, like DreamQuark. We invested in seed, and at the time, there was no such thing as a proper product and a go-to-market strategy. Turns out it's actually starting to work, but it takes longer time. And I guess as an investor, the way I look at it is, I have a fund, I have to invest it within 2, 3, up to 4 years, and then I've got up to 10 years to divest. So I need to have a clear view of what I'm going to do with the company. And clearly, when I look at deep tech, I need to somehow understand what this is about. And oftentimes it's really difficult. So I won't look at optronics and things like that. Silicon, because this is not my training. And I guess that's one of the barriers to deep tech is you need to understand and be able to challenge what you have in front of you because, yeah, a bunch of patterns can be good, but I need to be able to understand. So some things I understand and I can go in. Others, we just pass for lack of understanding of the underlying technology and the edge and the moat.
Do you want to add something, or maybe I can? So,
only one thing. Yeah, what we are. You ask what we are looking when we know.
Yeah.
So the first thing is the team. So the founding team, they have to have experience and background on really many years of experience on their field. And the second is we try to really understand ourselves, not looking or asking to external people, but ourselves, the technology and the competitiveness. So we spend months doing the technological due diligence. We are a small team of 4 people, 4 engineers. 3 of them, they are really very knowledgeable on technology, on software and electronics. So for us, it's key to really understand the same language and talk the same language than the entrepreneurs.
That is quite interesting, Javier, because one of the main pains everyone talks when they talk about investing in deep tech is about the difficulty to understand the technology. And they even say that if you don't have a PhD on your team, it's not easy to you to understand the technology. At the same time, when we talk about this deep technology, we are used to think about science fiction, right? About the things that we've learned from the books of Julio Verne or Asimov, or about the movies, and it's sometimes complicated to understand exactly how it lands to a real space, right? So how do you think you can fight the hype? It's sometimes that we can be very illusional about some new brand technology, and we don't really understand exactly what it is, so it becomes a great hype. So it's a lot of people trying to invest in something, but they don't know exactly how to do it. For instance, Hussein, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that much of the deep tech world actually gets hyped because the virtue of people not being able to understand it means it doesn't end up in kind of the mainstream press in the same way. So it is actually genuinely difficult to understand some of these kind of core innovations. So the big question for us is it's not just usually the R&D value or the intellectual property value of the company that makes these things interesting. They have to figure out a way to get into market, and I would argue that you spend just as many cycles once you can suspend disbelief and believe they can build whatever it is that they say they're going to build, where you think that there's a mechanism to be able to scale the business. I mean, the advantages of kind of consumer businesses is the data kind of tells you immediately whether something is scaling or not. The challenge with deep tech businesses is you kind of have to incubate them or gestate them for like 2-3 years because they have to go do the actual hard work. But you can't write the check. At least we don't feel comfortable writing the check when all there is the IP. We really do have to think about what the next step is going to be. Can this and the classic old companies, I mean, people forget this. Like back in the day when Intel was like a chip company doing memory chips, not even like processor chips, the ramp up to real revenue, like 50 to 100 million in revenue, happened incredibly fast. Genentech did exactly the same thing. So once these things actually do get kind of product market fit, they build what they say they're going to build. The really great businesses of what we've seen in kind of like hard technology, deep technology, scale really, really, really rapidly.
Okay. Borja, you want to add something?
Absolutely. So I totally agree with what Hussein is saying. I mean, technological advance is obviously long-term, and probably when you're in the R&D side and the technical risk is high or very high, that would not be a VC play. That would be more like universities or research centers. What we usually invest in is when you see some technological advance that can give some creation of value. But the problem we see is that they're usually developers who are very much focused on the technology, and they really love tech, and they're really good at that, and they know that. Probably I don't even understand what they are trying to build. But what I rather look at is actually a market out there that is going to buy this, or is the market ripe? So it takes actually even longer to find the right time to invest just before the market is really asking for that. Because if you go to any inventions fair, they're full of new inventions, but most of them don't even make money. So the question here is, when I do see something which is meaningfully a deep tech, is it ready to actually make an impact and create value in the next few years? When that happens, it's boom, it's overnight. What happens is that it's not overnight, it's from day zero. Maybe I've been looking at those companies for, maybe I learn about them today, and only in 5 years' time is when I invest. When I think that is 1-2 years before, they can get to market. So what I would say to the technical founders that focus on deep tech is that they need to think about the commercial side of it. Not just to make money, it's just to understand whether what they're creating is adding value to mankind, which is not something that you say, something everybody says by buying, or something that increases value only to their ego, okay, which is totally worthless. So I want to invest in something that adds value and retains it and captures it for mankind, rather than ego, for some sort of tenured professor in some, university. I'm not interested in that.
Okay, thanks. They say also that one of the main pains of deep tech when you are going to invest is they are slow, right? Because they need everything you say. Javier, you have been investing on 20 years. Are they slow?
Well, our oldest company in the portfolio is 14 years old. We sold the first one in 3 years, so I mean, it depends on the cases. But yes, you have to be very patient, and you know that the window of opportunity of selling the company is years from day one. And well, if you have LPs that accept that, and that you are used to this, and that you are not looking for an exit in the third year, it happens. Of course, I would like to sell all the companies in the third year the maximum value, but we know that in this case, companies, you don't sell the companies are bought by someone. So at the end, you have to wait until the right opportunity, the right buyer is there. So yeah, it's very long, but it's a lot of research. So before you have products in the market and the market is ready to buy them and you are scaling, it takes a lot of time.
Great, and because all of that research, they say also that they fail more often. What do you think on that? Is that true? Do you think that you take more risk investing in this kind of company because of that? For instance, Alex?
It's hard to tell. I mean, I couldn't speak for our portfolio because actually our deep tech companies are quite successful, and we only have a few in the portfolio, and they're quite successful. So obviously, if you take them very young and they're still doing R&D, the big question for us is to assess their ability to transform a technology into a product. And oftentimes, it's very much so the case in France. I guess it's quite a European pattern where we love technology, and it's really about having the best technology, but we think about the technology even before the product. And in the end, for me, when I ask the question, is okay, you have this technology, but what's the product, and what problem does it solve, and whose problem is it in the end? And for founders that have that mindset, they can be PhDs, 10 years of math, and doing lots of R&D in universities. If they have that mindset, I guess you're much more likely to find a good business. It really hinges on like any business. It really hinges on the founder's culture.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the mortality is unavoidable. I mean, companies are going to die. That's for sure.
Of course.
There are many models of investing. You can try to. Well, I'm going to invest in a lot of companies because I know that 10% or 15% or 20% are going to give me back the returns, and the rest are going to either die or are going to be zombies, or we are going to recover only a small part of the investment. We have a completely opposite approach. We invest on a very few amount of companies. We have invested in 19 years in 18 companies. So low mortality is one of our main objectives. And when you invest in this type of companies where the period is so long, where the efficiency on the use of the capital is very high, you are not using money to acquire customers, or you're not using money for marketing campaigns or whatever. You're using money to pay people in the software cases, or to pay people and do some prototypes. So you can, with relatively small amount of money, you can really stay a long time. You have a lot of subsidies. You have a lot of R&D support. So I don't think that is, I mean, I haven't invested on non-deep tech companies, so I can't compare. But the 3 companies that died from our portfolio were the less deep of the 18.
I don't think that deep tech companies have higher mortality rate than the usual VC play. And the thing that I see 2 main reasons. Number one is that the failure usually happens before the VC goes in. So it happens at R&D stage. So there are thousands of universities out there, researching specific lines. And then, after 2-3 years, they find out that, it really doesn't get anywhere. So those failures have not been invested by VCs, usually by, R&D funding. When something goes like something, seems that it's going to work, then maybe a VC can see, like Javier says, the potential. Then obviously, then you start investing, and then onwards, the probability ratio of success or failure actually is similar to any other VC play. The second thing is, because they're very technical, they don't have this hype, as Hussein was saying. They don't appear on the big magazines, and they don't receive 50 million just to acquire customers. They receive money to actually prove, to validate their hypothesis little by little. So because they don't have so much money, they actually don't, doesn't burn their hands, so they don't fail. They only fail when their technology doesn't work, right? But it's not because they basically get overloaded with cash. They get the cash in 50, 100, 500 million when they actually need it, because they need that money to really put it to good use, to either build the hardware or build whatever it is that they're doing, right? But they're not just misusing the money for just acquiring customers, paying for your own customers, all right?
Okay, just for being the devil advocate here and talking about what you just said, what do you think about this Theranos effect? Theranos, this company that did exactly the opposite that you said. And that's why I'm selling the devil advocate, right? It's this company that just used a lot of marketing stuff. They were huge. This lady entrepreneur, she said that she was trying to change the world, and at the end of the time, it was a fake. And well, if you can see a Netflix documentary right now, you can check the whole story.
It wasn't venture backed.
Sorry?
It wasn't venture backed.
Mm-hmm.
There was no venture person on the board. There were no venture firms in the cap table, apart from like 1 or 2 VCs who did it as kind of angel investments. So it was a bunch of rich families who didn't know what they were doing, trying to play tech VC.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. What I'm saying is exactly this: do you think this kind of effect can really hurt this investment or this ecosystem on deep tech? Because it's something that people saw and they don't understand this kind of small things. And that when you tell a story like this one, people just take the things they want to take, right? Mm-hmm. So do you think it's going to be a bad thing for the ecosystem?
I would like to say something about that.
Yeah.
That Theranos, they just came directly straight away to the B2C. They wanted just to address the market, and they didn't cross the bridge. So it was lots of regulations in between. Mm-hmm. So let's say, if you work on synovial fluid, for instance, and you wanna change, how the people replace themselves on problems on their needs, or a prostheses. So you will find ahead of you, lots of regulations. So you cannot just go and just jump everything and go straight to the market. So as Javier was saying, it's a scientific process. There's lots of university transfer. There's lots of time to validate this business model, and then eventually will become a company. Mm-hmm. And then when it is a company, but I mean it's not a company as we understand, on the economics units and producing money as we think, when it has to be invested and it would produce some returns. So reaching that point, to me, it's the Theranos 700 million burned. It was something like that. So it was something that they just created a product, jumped to the market, and it was nothing in there.
Yeah, of course. And so the point is that we are talking about deep technology, people that is trying to change for real the world. So we have a lot of opportunities, right? It's maybe they say also that I was just talking about the pains, but there's a lot of good thought on this industry, and they say they could be the next blue ocean, right? Because there are not so many people investing in these areas. There's a lot of people on consumer side or on SaaS platforms. So what do you think about that? Maybe you as investors, when you invest in deep tech, you usually go at the beginning of the company, so you can have maybe a lot of equity of the company, and at the same time, the returns are maybe bigger than in the other side. So, Hussein, what do you think about that?
We're only a seed and Series A firm, so whether we do a consumer tech or a business-to-business business or a deep tech type business, we're almost always the first venture investor behind them. Sometimes we're a very large venture investor, and we've done things with a sheet of paper with 2 people and written a $5 million check on the basis of an idea. But we're always early.
Okay, Alex, do you think there are a lot of opportunities on deep tech right now?
Yeah, of course there is, and just like there is on less deep tech, I think we try and go. We're known for going after quote unquote unsexy startups, and typically what you see with the inflation of valuation, as an investor, at some point I got to make sure I'm not getting stuck in that trap. And what you see with the quote unquote unsexy startups, very tech driven, no fluff, no marketing, no nothing. Tend to be less attractive to the crowd of investors that you have nowadays, and basically allows you to have better conversations with better understanding of what the company does, and it becomes somewhat less competitive. So going back to Ledger, when they were looking for a seed, we went in and it was a big bet. At Series B stage, they were skyrocketing their revenues. They were exceeding. They were doubling month over month. It was completely crazy, and they attracted an awful lot of money. So it was a great deal for us, a great deal for them as well. So to me, there's no rule. The rule is, make sure you invest at the right kind of company for the right problem, the right product, the right business, and the right people.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. We only have a couple of minutes left. So Javier, just to finish, can you tell us some good example of your portfolio in these 20 years about a deep tech company?
Yes, well, a company based in Sevilla, which is not the place that everyone thinks when talking about deep tech. A spin-off from CSIC, which is the official research center in Spain, the first spin-off ever, and we invested in 2003. So we helped to create the company. It was a semiconductor company specialized on image sensors, a company founded by 7 researchers. We spent 11 years. They fought each other every other day, so we had to really be some arbitrage, and this company was bought by a company called E2B. It's a British company specialized in semiconductors, and then the company was bought by Teledyne, which is one of the monsters of the electronics in the world, a US company. And now they have created in Sevilla, based on that team, a research excellence center for image sensors. So we made very good returns. All the team had stock options or phantom shares.
Start doing internally to manage it? And the same for you guys, that once you enter, what did you do to help the company with that hypergrowth?
You
want to start?
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I think I touched on it, but like what we really are doing to like help us win in the hypergrowth stage is like setting up it in a way that doesn't slow things down, more processes. So as we expand to more offices and as we get like more people on board and we're empowering the local teams, then we want them to be creative and to come up with lots of ideas and to like be like a startup on the ground. At the same time, we need to tie all the budget together. We need to have ROI. We need to hit certain contribution margins. So it's like actually putting the structure in place that's not too restrictive, but sort of just helps actually like continue to fuel the growth, but with some sort of like barriers in place. So that's like I feel like the stage that we're at. I think previously, like we've just been, as with probably most startups, I imagine, like just like, okay, let's just do it. Let's just do this. Let's just do that. And everyone can't just do what comes to mind when you get to a certain size. And I think we're at that size where we just have to, the communication flow is improving. We're all we have weekly all hands, which is super helpful, especially because we have multiple offices now. And we're very clear on what the most important, like as you mentioned, focus, what the focus is. Like for this quarter, like we've just written our OKRs actually, so we use OKRs. And what are our OKRs for this quarter, for Q4? What do we need to focus on? And so like putting that cascading structure in place helps keep everybody aligned, and that's super important or we feel it's super important when we get to this stage.
You mentioned before something about the growth machine, right? Like that is your
yeah.
task right now. You have to be, you need to build the growth machine.
Yeah, we've coined it like we're building a growth machine. So like the growth machine to us is actually taking a step back and saying, okay, like on our PPC, how are we doing this? We've been doing it. We've been like our PPCs, like our SEM, our paid marketing, one of the biggest channels we have, and we've been estimating how much budget to put behind it and setting limits for our campaigns of how much we want to spend and making sure we don't go over those limits. So we're trying to do an effective ROI. But instead, we're actually going to switch the model now. We're in the process of working out how to switch to a ROAS model within PPC, which means that the Google bidding algorithm can automatically, we don't have budget limits. We're moving away from thinking we only want to spend this budget. We actually want to spend as much as we can as long as we're getting it back. Right? And that's the skyrocket. So building out the systems that allow us to do that, having all the data automated and in one place so that we can do that, so we can build the daily reports that we need that serve the entire business. That's like our growth machine that we're building. I was in a big meeting about it this morning, and like we're actually in the thick of like, and like for Q4, it's one of our key focuses. And you know, we've been doing fine. We've been getting decent returns, but it's just the level of, like the level of automation hasn't been there. And so we're
systems and
that
data as a basis for the growth.
Yeah, the real foundations for that growth. And it means like changing our attribution model, other things as well, potentially. But, you know, we're still always on the top line, be able to see where we're heading in the year on year, but just that attribution between channels will change as well. And it's a step that, like, you know, it has consequences, but I think we're going to take it because it's the right thing for the growth.
Does that speak to any of your experiences?
Yeah, I would take a different approach, talking a little bit more about our early days. I think a common mistake that some entrepreneurs does and some companies is try to scale too early. I think it's stupid to try to scale before finding product market fit. Because basically what it does is it's going to just increase the amount of investment that you need to put in, and it will incorporate geographical complexity for you to validate the hypothesis that you need to validate before scaling. So in our case, what we decided to do is first, we wanted to be global from day one, but what we did is, okay, let's use Spain as a test market, and once we have a product market fit in Spain, once we have unit economics that make sense in Spain, then we invest heavily to scale and we go and open offices. We started in Italy, France, and Mexico, but of course you can decide to start by any other market. But if there are entrepreneurs in the audience, I think a classical mistake is to try to be as quick as possible scaling. And I think it's a good piece of advice not to do it before you are ready to do that, which is basically finding product market fit and having unit economics that make sense. At least it's what we did.
What you did.
I would like to repeat what Amanda just said about OKRs. At N26, we have yearly OKRs, quarterly, monthly, and even weekly OKRs per team, and that's the only way to actually be aligned as a big organization. Having said that, one of the biggest challenges as you're growing and with all those OKRs and how to scale them or how to actually cascade them down to all the other members of the team or the members of the company, you realize that you have your teams very much focused on recruiting and hiring, and which is, as you're scaling, as you're growing, you need to hire a lot of people, and you have part of your team that should be 200% focused on the actual company and the actual business and the growth of the business, focusing on onboarding and then getting new people. And that is actually, you lose time there and you lose time to market in that process. So it's very important to actually make sure that you put the right balance on how big or how fast you can actually start hiring without hampering or damaging the existing business. And having said that, as you're hiring, you need to make sure that you hire people that are 100% flexible and 100% adaptable to changes, because I've been through 4 different companies every 6 months. No, it's changed massively, so I think that's And I have to subscribe to product market fit. However, speed is so important. So there's always that balance as well, trying to be fast and then arrive to the markets where the opportunity is still available.
Sure. In my perspective as founder, the biggest thing is when you start to think, at the beginning is about, I have a problem, how to solve it. Then is, how is going to solve it? Sorry, who is going to solve it? So it's completely change of mind. So sometimes you know the solution, but you just wait, try to help him. Maybe it's the right way or not. It's really difficult because you know the solution, but you have to give them time to start to solve their own problems. And for me, it's the biggest challenge that we had. And also about what you mentioned about the onboarding. So it's difficult to balance between being the daily business strategy and onboarding the new people. So other thing that help us a lot is we have a big training team inside of the organization, working with all the management levels and also with, in our case, in sales, we have a lot of hiring last month. So we have a big training team just onboarding all the salespeople. So we're not doing shadowing as in the beginning. That's the easiest way is to train people. We have a team that train new people. So also a good suggestion for the future.
Both of you have touched already on people. Let's talk about talent. Let's jump to that. What are you guys looking for in whenever you need to hire? What is the key essential aspect that it's going to make sure that it's a good fit?
Well, it's really difficult to be good at hiring. At least I'm not good at hiring. I think it's about ownership. You look for humble people and also for angry people, people who wants to learn. If you have these three things, you can always make it. And also flexibility is really important at the beginning, but try to handle also emotions. So people who understand, but maybe I'm not promoting this year, but you can wait for next year. So people who understand the dynamics of the business is really challenging for us. So looking for people who has ownership, but also a global understanding of the company and the ecosystem and how the things used to work.
So you have figured out that that is the profile that also is not only good for the moment that you hire them, but grows with the company, I guess.
Yes, we have people who start with us as trainee, and now one of is managing 150 people.
Wow.
His first job.
In how long?
3 years.
Not bad.
So it's awesome. But this guy is unique. We are really lucky, but the good point is that he has been with us for a long time, so he's really flexible, he understands, he's always learning, and he's really humble. He's always saying, okay, if you find the other guy better than me, no problem, just hire him. So he's the perfect guy.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. I'm in love.
I agree with. We need that guy.
Don't take him.
No, break your heart.
He has to keep opening markets.
But I mean, I agree with the attributes that you said. Yeah, for me, the best people I've hired in the past career and like here at Spotham, the people we're hiring are people with a thirst for learning, like real curiosity and just a need to better themselves. And so they're not there for the money necessarily, you know, like they're there because they want the challenge. They're inspired by a mission. They get excited by the learning curve, you know, because there's so much change, and that's the flexibility as well. But it's like you can view it as like, oh, there's so much change, or oh wow, cool, I'm learning so much at such a rate, you know, and that sort of attitude it ties into the hunger thing that you said as well, the hunger to learn and just advance and be better, but also with humility. So it's not like the big ego and like I did all this. It's you know, the humility that there's so much to learn, that they're adding value, and we're all doing it together as well, and that there's no perfect way as well. Like you know,
You have to be as little as good to make it.
Yeah.
But not too much good to just become an idiot. So it's difficult.
It's a balance.
Yeah, it's a balance.
Yeah,
even for us. Yeah.
yeah, but
Brilliant.
maybe.
Yeah, for us, I think when companies are scaling, you need people. You feel that you need more people in your team. So the temptation that you have as a founder is to hire fast and fire slow. And we learned that we need to do exactly the opposite. So you need to hire slow and take a lot of care of which kind of people you bring into the company, and fire fast, which is one of the things that you typically learn the hard way to do. But that it's very important. When someone is not a good fit for your company, you need to act as quickly as possible. In terms of which kind of skills we look for, we found that one of the skills that we need is people who get things done, who make things happen. And this is very difficult to identify in interviews because people is mainly in the UK, in the US, that we are starting now, is super good at passing interviews. So it's very complicated. It's very complicated to identify if you are this kind of people. But it's the one that we found the most correlated with success inside SITTEC. So if you are the classical people's manager, you will not be successful working with us. It might change when we are
that size.
Their size. Maybe with 1,000 people, you need people managers. In our size, that we are 130, we are still looking for doers that what they are passionate about is to see the actual impact of their work.
So no people pleasing, just doing, executing.
Yeah, so yeah, to people who is good at transforming the reality from when they start in the company and when they, after 6 months, you see that their impact is massive. This is the people that we look for.
Perfect. You guys are also hiring very fast, so what
Very
did
fast.
you look for?
So at N26, a year ago, we had 500 employees, and now we have 1,400. So that means nearly 1,000 people in the last year.
How you do it?
How do you do it, right?
Why do you do it? So one of the main challenges is actually that culture fit, right? Because obviously the culture evolves. You need to admit that you need to accept that there's going to be a change in the organization and that people are going to behave differently because there's more people coming. And obviously your onboarding process actually professionalizes over time and you can be faster. Not only the onboarding, but the recruiting process, right? How do you do interviews? How do you actually filter candidates? And how do you are still strict and be very professional and trying to find those specific candidates, those specific roles that you need to fit in and those specific candidates, right? So I think I said the culture changes, but what you need to try to stick to is the values that you had at the beginning, right? And from very early on, we defined 4 values, which were simplicity, integrity, drive, and excellence. And we can evaluate that during the process of the interviews, and we very much check certain boxes to make sure that our candidates, our new joiners, actually meet those requirements. And obviously, there's this probation period where you still check and evaluate in order to meet what Albert was saying. I think that's also very relevant. You need to be able to know very fast that you have the right people in place, or either move them or let them go.
So you mentioned culture, not only specific talents, but also culture. Do you also guys have a mindset, a culture that you're validating during interviews?
Yes, but we are not really good. No, we try many things. We keep improving. I think that we have to fire fast, but I think most of the time it's a problem also of the onboarding expectations. And so we are trying to work more on the grading table about what we expect from different profiles and different positions, what they should deliver, is this aligned with the OKRs or not, and how are we going to train them?
Right.
Because 90% of our cases, it's not a problem of the candidate or the employee, it was our problem. Yeah. So we are now much more focused in the other part, more than in the interview.
So that makes a lot of sense, actually. I mean, like, sometimes it's not only when you are going out hiring people, do you analyze also what you're offering?
Well, it took us 4 years. So
right.
Maybe it's obvious, but for us, it was not.
No, from your experience, now it makes sense, I guess. Yeah.
like many things.
What about you guys in Spotahome?
I think on the culture side, we are changing. So, like, I think it's noticeable. Like, so we were just Madrid, and then with the opening of London and the opening of the other offices, like, we're bringing different people in. We're introducing leveling frameworks, like, within the whole org, which wasn't there before, and, like, sort of putting, that extra structure around it. And we're just getting, I think we're like skilling up in general, like the level of analytics, the level of the way we do things. So at one point we were like just taking, like people to work, we just need doers, and we are getting to that point, I think, where we need to look at like, who are we? We have a list of values, but we have 8. So it's quite a lot, like, of values. So I think at some point we'll be doing like some culture work around like, getting to like a bit like a branding exercise, like, call like what's the essence of who we are really, like that, like, we call ourselves spotters, but like what is a spotter? Like what does that mean? Like, so there's still, and so I think it's mixing up. We've got subcultures. We've hired a lot of people from Uber, or we've got a lot of people, like we've got subcultures coming in.
Your own culture, right?
Like, yeah, there's a lot of change happening. So like, I think there's more we can do around our culture and making sure, and like owning it and defining it better. Like, yeah.
Are you doing anything around culture in SIPTAG?
Yeah, I think every founder and every company thinks a lot about culture, values, mission statement, etc. In my personal view, culture, there are 2 kinds of company cultures, basically. One is the culture of fear of loss, and the other is the culture of opportunity. And the companies that have this fear of loss culture, it means that they already have a very big business, and that their #1 goal basically is to protect this business and to make it grow. If you have this kind of culture, it's super difficult to embrace hypergrowth because you are very concerned on protecting what you have. In our case, and I think it's still the case for all the companies in the panel, we are totally in the opportunity mindset. And I think this is one of the biggest competitive advantage that we have when we go against more traditional companies and trying to disrupt them. That basically we try to work in small groups with a very defined challenge. We encourage our teams to take calculated risk, to catch the opportunity as quickly as possible and move on to the next challenge. And this is the kind of mindset that we work, which is totally different from the other kind of companies.
The more established ones. Brilliant. The other aspect that is totally related or correlated with hypergrowth is opening new geographies, right? All of you are in that process. Let's start with you. I'm sorry, you're the closest one.
Well, we just opened now Southeast Asia. And we're going to close the year with almost 35 countries. In our model, it's kind of easy to launch countries. It's not that difficult because we have just 1 office. We are all of the team in Valencia, so it's much easier. And we use third parties to operate. So now we are really focused on Southeast Asia. We think there's a huge opportunity there.
How did you evaluate that opportunity? Sorry. It's like Asia is not a typical country for a Spanish company to expand, right?
Well, we are looking for big cities in the emerging markets because we're seeing a huge opportunity on these unbanked people between 20 to 40 with convenience as something that they really love or they give value to them. So we focus on that kind of cities and markets.
You're starting with Philippines, and then how many other countries?
Well, we already launched Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand. Yeah, we launched all of them. So.
How many in Asia already?
250, 300, cities? Yeah. No, shops. So yeah, and about cities, roughly 20. Yeah.
Okay.
But for us, it's easy. No, it's not.
So you say it's easy. I doubt it. I mean, like, but how does it help that you have everything centralized in Valencia and then opening cities? Is like, does it mean that in Valencia the team has to grow? How does it operations-wise?
It's difficult to hire people because we have to bring all of them to Valencia.
Right.
But it's really cool because we are, I don't know, maybe 20% of the people is from Spain, 80% is international. So when we are operating, for example, in Indonesia, we have Indonesian people from Valencia working for Indonesia. Really? In the marketing team, in the product team, in the people team, everywhere. So it's like a Babel Tower all together working. So the feeling and the atmosphere is completely international. So I think it adds a lot of, it prevents from the cultural perspective a lot of future problems that could happen because we feel that we were not ready to open like 6 hubs or 7 hubs. but we were ready to mix all of them in Valencia. And the cool thing is that most of them just moved to Valencia to work with us.
Right.
So this creates a sense of family. So they spend a lot of time together. They know each other earlier. So, well, we're trying to create something cool.
That's brilliant. What about you guys? Spot home.
Yeah, I think there's pros. So we've been expanding through like opening the new offices, and there's pros and cons, right? See the time.
It's okay. we can finish this question and then we'll go.
I'll be quick. I think one of the core challenges with opening up all the offices is this balance between what we centralize and localize. We want to empower local teams, and there's a clear advantage to being local as well. Like the people on the ground know the markets the best and everything. So, but then centralizing like the core marketing things or like, you know, other operations processes. So yeah, I think it's about getting the balance, and we're looking to expand into lots of other cities, and ours is like, do we go into other cities within the countries we're already in? Probably, and then which other countries do we go, you know, like that sort of thing. So we're evaluating.
One sentence. We're running over one sentence each.
We will open the US next year.
We are in 26 countries, 24 in Europe, including the UK, also Switzerland, even though it's very small. It's actually very important to be there as a bank. And then we just launched the US. So from Europe, we do it from Berlin. In the US, we've actually built our own New York office. And also we'll launch Brazil next year.
Thank you, guys. I would be talking to you for hours, but time's up. Time's up. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, as they're leaving, please, if you want to speak to them, do so outside. We're running over, and we want to be respectful for the next session. So please meet them outside if you want to speak to them. So key takeaways from this session around managing hypergrowth. It's about focus, balance, maintaining a culture while empowering middle management, and having the structure in place that isn't restrictive. And from a culture perspective, it's really about finding people who are curious, have a thirst for learning, and have the hustle. If you all could please keep the noise down as we have the next session come up, that'd be great. We're going to be moving from managing hypergrowth to financing super scale. So we're still in the same general topic of growth and scale, but we're looking about it from an investment perspective now. All right, if the panelists could come right over here, that'd be great. All right, so the next session is all around financing super scale. 2 minutes, you said, to wait? Okay, we're going to wait 2 minutes then. Is it Ignacio?
Yes.
Scarlett.
Nacho,
Nice to meet you. You want to be introduced as Nacho?
Yeah.
Let's do it. I don't know. It's been like this every time. It's been like this every time.
Really? So it's just.
But then it ends up filming back up. But it's like it's just there's not. It's such a small door.
Right.
It really is not good. If there was like a back entrance, that would be better. Like having the speakers go right through there. It's challenging.
How many more to go?
A lot. 3.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, another hour and a half or so.
So no Q&A, right?
I wish you could. It'd be really interesting, but these panels are pretty big for half an hour.
I know.
Because now it looks like people are trying to come in too, so you kind of have to wait.
Do we have? So what do we have? So 20 minutes? Or?
28.
Okay, so you okay.
Oh,
So I
it's-
don't need to take this off. Okay.
No, no, no. Everything is going to be right in front of you, and so you'll see it. All right, all right. So we just went from managing hypergrowth to financing super scale. So we have a great panel for you today, a bunch of founders, venture capitalists, different perspectives, and we're going to be talking about what it's like to invest in large rounds, what it takes to raise that next round. You should be able to leave here with tips and tricks yourself if you are on the venture side and you want to get more money, if you're on the startup side and you want to get more money, and really where the money is coming from, both in terms of a geography and everything else. So with that, let me go ahead and introduce this incredible panel. We have Miguel, who is the moderator. Go ahead, Miguel, and join us on stage. We also have Tom, Rika, Oyer, and Nacho. So come on up. Give them a big round of applause.
Hello. Yeah. So good afternoon. We have a great panel this afternoon, rock stars, to discuss about financing superscale. So we have a mix of investors and entrepreneurs, founders, to give us a very interesting perspective on superscale and on financing that. So I may just ask you to introduce yourselves very quickly and your firms so that people know a bit what you guys are doing. So if you start, Tom.
Yep, I'm Tom Mendoza, entrepreneur turned VC. Joined the dark side 3 years ago. I work for EQT Ventures. We're a founder-led venture firm. We invest out of a 600 million euro fund into A through C rounds. And we look for category-defining businesses coming out of Europe. So we invest in both B2C and B2B.
Great. So I'm Nacho, I'm the CEO of Fever, and just to give you a quick overview on what we're doing. So people spend money on 3 things, housing and rent, transport, and having fun. We help with the having fun part. And so there's 3 main parts to the business. We've got a discovery marketplace where people can come and find the best experiences in their city, all the way from an escape room to a music festival, theater, and so on. We also own the largest local media for entertainment in all the cities we're in, so Madrid Secreto, Secret London, Paris Secret, where we're reaching over 12 million people per week. And then we've also started co-producing experiences in a similar fashion to what Netflix has been doing with their Netflix originals. We're using data from our marketplace to help organizers create new experiences that did not yet exist. And some of you may know the escape room of La Casa de Papel in Madrid, which has been going on for, well, it just ended, but we had 100,000 people go to that one. So, yeah, that's Fever in a nutshell.
So I'm Oyer, I'm the founder of Loquero. Loquero is a personal shopping service for women. It's also the fun part of the investment. So how it works is based on the style profile that our clients fill in the website. A personal shopper will choose 5 items that we deliver to the client's house, and she has 5 days to decide what she keeps and return the rest. We launched 3 years ago, and we are now in 7 European countries. We are 300 people, and well, what I would say is compared to traditional ways of buying, our clients really value the personalization. So each box is totally personalized. All the boxes that we deliver are different, and the discovery. We help them discover new brands, new possibilities of fashion that they wouldn't have chosen by themselves.
Thank you.
I'm Rika, CEO of On Truck. So I'm in a very unsexy industry, not like fashion or having fun, or VC. So I'm in trucking. And what we're a marketplace, a platform that connects companies that are looking to move goods. So Coca-Cola, P&G, they all need to move their goods with truck drivers. And we're currently operational here in Spain, UK, France, and the Netherlands.
Okay, thank you very much. So first of all, in terms of superscale, so when we define scale or superscale, it'd be interesting to understand from an investor perspective, what do you guys look for in terms of scalability? What are the metrics? What are the business models? What type of things are you looking for to make sure a business is actually scalable? Tom?
Yeah. I wouldn't get here into like the nitty-gritty. I think to take a step back, when we invest early stage, we're looking for it's founder and market bets. When we move towards scale, I think fundamental piece of the equation is product market fit. I think everyone drums that and talks about it a lot, but that's the key part of the equation in our opinion. But then following that is that you have product market fit in a market that is large and a market that is expanding, able to generate the returns that could justify a scale round. And I think last but not least, we're not looking for profitable unit economics at that point in time, but clearly a path towards them. And those for us, or for me personally, are like the key pillars of a growth round.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And in terms of the entrepreneurs here, what do you think makes your business scalable? What has resonated with investors? Obviously, you guys have raised recently large rounds. So what has resonated really with investors in terms of my business scalable, I'm able to export it, in addition to, the metrics themselves? No?
So I think in our case, from the very beginning, we wanted to be a platform that's innovating on a global level. And the investors we have are international investors, and I think what they value is a company that wants to be the leader in what they're doing from day one. So Fever, from day one, we launched Madrid, and we built our tech hub here, but immediately launched London and New York. And talking about unit economics, those markets after a few years are now profitable. So I think showing that you have a model by which cities become profitable, and there's that path towards profitability. That's something that we've seen in the equity story has been very important. And then replicating. In our case, it hasn't been that much about launching many cities very quickly. It's about launching the right cities and showing that you have a model that replicates well and that follows a certain trend and that improves with every market you launch. So we're now in 5 countries. We're in LA, we're in New York, we're in Chicago, we're in Barcelona, Madrid, Lisbon, Paris, London, Manchester. And we're always improving on the playbook. So yeah, I think the combination of being global from the very beginning and also showing a path towards profitability, and that essentially means it's a business that can at some point IPO, which I think it's important to have that vision.
Oyer?
Yeah, so I would say it's the combination of their answers. One, internationalization, that you can prove that this doesn't only work in Spain, but also in international markets. Once you have the product market fit, it's what Tom was saying. If the market is big, it's like replicating that and scaling that. So in our case, e-commerce and fashion is huge. So it's about like we are proving this works, like clients like this, now we're going to scale it. So it's...
Yeah, I echo the market opportunity, kind of being able to solve very similar problems with your solution in various places. Where we actually found, let's say, a struggle that I think that we've kind of figured out a path was what was the unit of profitability. So we first looked at it on a city basis, and perhaps it's relevant to you guys, but then we realized, so in trucking, which is again a very unsexy business, but you have many different types of trucks. You have from a van to like those big trailers that you see on the highway. And what we realized, we were starting to measure profitability and replicability at a city level, and it was really weird. We saw these dynamics, sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. We're like, oh, what's going on? Because we couldn't show it to investors. And then when we started digging a little bit deeper, maybe by country, maybe by shipper, like maybe P&G in Spain is the same as P&G in UK. But again, it wasn't. But what we figured out was that it was actually truck type. Like a van in Madrid is the same as a van in London. And then over there, you start to see like very similar patterns of replicability. You're like, oh man, this is it. And that's what we need to focus on. And obviously, if you want to brand yourself as like a technology company, automation. So being able to automate like one by one, truck type by truck type, and whatever unit that you think is the most impactful, I think that was like, how can you add technology to make that much more scalable? For us, that was really critical.
Right, exactly. And in terms of business model, because it's very interesting what you're saying, but in terms of business model, how important do you think it is to innovate globally that we discussed in the past, which is not replicating business models from somewhere else, but actually innovating in Spain on having proper business models and not just necessarily replicating other business models. So Nacho, this probably is one for you. How important, how you see the Spanish landscape evolving towards new ideas rather than just copycats of international?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, I think that's something that investors who are looking for a winner value a lot. Of course, I think a lot of companies have done a great job at taking concepts that maybe for which Spain or Latin America wasn't a priority and have built multi-billion-dollar businesses. So I think that's awesome. But I do think that in Spain we're increasingly seeing a lot of businesses that are actually being born with a global ambition. And yeah, I think getting to a point where people lose the fear of doing that and see that you can get finance despite being a company in Spain. Because at the beginning, even for us, there was always that question mark of, do we do that jump and do we risk going into the, in the big league where the big players are and struggling. But the reality is that I think if you've got a solid business opportunity and you follow it through and you're convinced that it's something that can work, you will get the financing. And fortunately, there's a lot of capital out there.
Right.
And if you have a model that scales, which is I think the most important part, you'll get people excited. So I think that's something that needs to be encouraged. And I think in Spain we're still in the process of seeing that.
Right. And so in terms of super scaling, so the underlying theme behind super scaling obviously is the debate, the eternal debate around growth versus profitability. There's been a lot of discussion recently with Uber, etc., around, again, growth versus profitability. I mean, for you, Tom, is that debate evolving? Is it the same debate we've had over the past 10 years? Is there a shift in mentality from the investor side? What's your view on this?
As I mentioned before, I think what's important is is there a clear path and do you have the levers, right? Fortunately, right now there's a lot of capital, so you can go for growth, but at some point capital might dry up, and if you don't have the levers, then you're in trouble. So I think that if you have a market opportunity in front of you and there is strategic value behind the expansion, you should go for growth. But you shouldn't raise growth rounds if you don't have a clear path towards profitability nor product market fit, of course.
Right. So you see no change in really perception. So still the same old debates.
Yeah. Right? Just one thing I wanted to comment on the prior topic is that we massively value taking existing business models into markets that don't have those business models, like copycatting a business, because executing is the most difficult thing out of everything. But one of the things we look for and we get the most excited about is category-defining companies. So, a sector in which Europe creates, the leading company, call it Booking.com or look at gaming. So we are very confident that Europe can build those companies. And what we value there is when we meet an entrepreneur that has the courage and the disruption to think differently. And that for us that's the insight. Are you just like copying or are you actually an innovator? So I think that's something that I would challenge like entrepreneurs to think more and demonstrate that ability to investors.
Right. And so who's funding those type of rounds? So who are you finding? Or you just announced your last round just a few days ago. I mean, who is funding those rounds? Who are you finding as investors for these type of rounds?
So in our case, it's international. At this is in Series B, like the lead investor is international. But in Spain there are also a few funds that can co-lead. In our case, like All Iron Ventures invested in the seed round, then invested in Series A, and now co-led with the international fund. But we were looking for international funds since the beginning at this stage, so that can help us with the future growth. So.
Yeah, but exactly. So the question really is, I mean, there's always a debate in Spain around no existence of growth funds. But the question maybe for you, Nacho, is, I mean, would you go for a Spanish growth fund, or are you actually looking for an international partner to help you either grow internationally or give you access to a different type of operating partners? I mean, is that very relevant for you, or would you like to have local capital being able to finance that growth?
So I think it's, in our case, super relevant to get international capital. I wouldn't really know who to speak with right now in Spain for growth capital. And I think all of our businesses here, we're businesses where we're setting up. Well, in your case, I'm not sure if that much, but we're setting up local operations in a lot of the markets that we're launching in. So I think international capital that has presence across the globe is super valuable. So in our case, the last round was led by Rakuten Capital. They can help us in Asia, they can help us in the US, they've got presence in Europe. So I think it also depends a little bit on the nature of the business. In our case, it is super relevant. And yeah, I mean, we also have a lot of local investors of key markets. I think that that's something that people are realizing more, is the value of having a local player who can help. When Portugal, we saw that was a market that we were interested in, well, we have a local investor there. In France, we also have a local investor there. In the US, we have investors. So I think it's finding someone who can finance, can be a solid growth fund to help you scale globally, but also having those local players is super valuable. And then, how you prioritize it, I think it depends on the nature of the business.
Right. And Enrique, in your case, what are you looking for in a fund or a partner? What are the criteria that are relevant? I mean, just for disclosure, we GP Wuhan are also investors in OnTrack, so. but
we're looking for you guys.
Feel free.
So I mean, we did a seed, Series A, and Series B, and I think in every round you look for something slightly different. I think the seed round is just someone that believes in you, typically that really believes in the team, your ability to execute, believe in, like, let's say, the dream. In the Series A, we were actually looking to expand into the UK, so it was kind of our first international foray, so that was one in which Atomico led, and that one I think is very similar to you when you were trying to look for, let's say, someone that could really help you in your kind of strategic plans. And now, as kind of we're looking at our kind of Series C and going forwards, I would say we're looking for someone that has the long-term vision. I think especially if you build something like a marketplace, it requires, you definitely need to see the path to profitability, but we're not there yet. And we're probably not going to be there yet until the next 3 to 5 years. And if someone that has, let's say, the long-term vision is willing to stick it out for the ride, and also, and maybe this sounds a little bit hokey, but someone that actually really believes in the mission. Like one of our core things, we really do want to make a social environmental impact by making trucking efficient. And so actually many of the interests doesn't necessarily come from pure financial investors, but more those are, let's say, thinking about climate change or more strategic partners that want to see it for the long run, that have, let's say, a strategic advantage in making trucking efficient.
Oyer, what are you looking for?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to partner with people that I like. I want to have a good feeling with the partner and with the rest of the team of the fund. That for me was a key criteria. Second, the vision alignment is really key. Like, this is the plan, this is what I think, and being aligned there really helps. And finally, I would say like a fund that adds value. Like, they add value strategically. Like so far, like my investors have helped me like with the strategic decisions. That has been really helpful. Also, the Oliron guys, they were founders before, so they could like bring their experience. And they add value also with contacts, both like other VC, like other startups that are similar from which we can learn. And finally, they add value with future financing or doing it by themselves or introducing you to the right funds for the future rounds.
Okay. And in terms of the day-to-day of funding, of financing superscale, Nacho, so is your feeling that you're always in round mode, you're always speaking to investors, always considering those type of, or you actually need a specific team dedicated to that, or you should devote a team to funding so that you can actually focus on the business? Is that the perception you have?
So I think that part of your job as a CEO or as a founding team is to share the vision and the mission of the company. And if you put someone else to do it, I think that you're going to really decrease the chances of getting someone that's aligned with what you want to build. So I think that for us, I mean, this round, it is true that you spend a lot of time, but also it's the most important decision for the company, picking the right partner. So do I feel like I'm always in fundraising mode? Sometimes. Now I just raised, you know, the bank accounts are pretty full, so now I don't have to speak to that many investors. Well, you still speak, but it's a different conversation. So you're not, you know, it's more of a casual conversation. It's more about, you know, when we do speak, what should we be talking about, and getting, especially when you're talking about bigger rounds, you know, starts becoming a very big commitment from the fund as well. So making sure that you're aligned, it's not something you do in 2 months. You know, I think that now we're having a lot of conversations that we'll be reactivating a year or, you know, 8 to 15 months from now. So now you are still speaking to investors, but not in fundraising mode, and I love that. Like it's been, yeah, raising rounds is very stressful.
Yeah.
So now I can dedicate time to the business. I mean, you know, I won't lie. I was dedicating like 80% of the time to fundraising when you're in fundraising mode. It's good because it means if the business is still growing, it means that you've got good management in place, and that the business works. But you know, at the end of the day, what excites me is to have an impact on the business. So
yeah, now because we've heard stories, recent true stories around companies closing a round and already starting working on the following round, which is kind of crazy, but that happens, particularly in super scale. So Tom, how do you think about this? I mean, do you always expect the founders to be 100% there, in particular for those rounds, for those super scale rounds, or is it normal that at some point in time there's another layer of management that actually takes the lead on that, or you really need to hear the vision and the mission and hear it directly from the founders?
I think that in the best companies, always the founders are involved. I think what changes is that you get a CFO to kind of like really take the lead on kind of like the data room and process, and that shifts. And in some cases, CFO is supported by, you know, advisors, but it's always the founder. I mean, at the end of the day, we're backing founders. So if the founder is not there, then yeah, it's a red flag in our case.
Right. And what alternatives do we have to equity? Maybe Rika, you can explain a bit what you've seen in addition to funding Superscale with equity. What other things are you guys thinking about?
I would say there's 2 key sources of funding beyond equity. One is public funding. I would say there are many generous governments in Europe that are looking to really drive kind of the European employment, European innovation, and it's, let's say, very generous long-term loans. And I would say our finance team are constantly in search of those. The second is actually venture debt. Maybe we're a particular situation in which we have a lot of working capital needs. So while we work with a lot of Spanish, French banks, they typically don't have the risk appetite to extend a ton of credit to startups. And so that's, I think, where venture debt we've really looked into, because although it is more expensive, is far less dilutive than equity, and oftentimes can be, let's say, can actually extend an equity round. The only thing is there are not as many, let's say, founders that understand like the terms and how to deal with venture debt. And obviously, if you don't pay the debt back, you're kind of screwed. So I think it's even more important to have founder-friendly venture debt partners than ever. Yeah.
How do you think about those, Tom? I mean, are you happy generally having also venture debt in the company, or?
Well, I think if you can raise equity, my preference would be in general terms to raise equity rounds, but it depends of for what you're actually raising the capital, right? I mean, in some cases you might want some balance sheet and to test some lending products out or something like that, or working capital. So, but if you're looking just for like growing the business, I think equity financing is a preference. Sometimes, you know, things don't gel and you just have to go for it, and there's great providers of venture debt.
Right. Yeah. Okay, I have time just for one last question. So if I may ask each of you just one tip for the people in the room for funding, financing Superscale, just one tip you may give the audience. Maybe we start with Nacho.
My advice would be, you know, put some clothes in a backpack and just travel around and meet people all over the world, literally all over the world, and speak to people who can fund your company. Like, there's very interesting funds in a lot of countries, not just the US. I mean, you've got in the Nordics, you've got in Germany, if you go to Asia, and I think part of the area where people fail early on is a lack of persistence and a lack of wanting to actually force yourself to do the work and go out there and not give up, and so I think that would be my tip.
Okay, thanks. Oyer?
Yeah, persistence is a really good one. But in my case, what I learned in this round is that VCs invest in lines and not in dots. No? So we went to London without being in London before, and they were like, wow, you've been really under the radar until this point, but now I want to see a progression. It's like, I don't have that much time for progression. So I would say like something we learned, if I had to do it again, like Series A, I would include an international fund, start talking to funds like internationally early on, like not once you get so far in the...
Okay. Rika?
I think it's about preparing yourself for fundraising. So I'm not the CEO, and so he's the one that goes out and speaks to investors, and he has to, sell the dream, sell the story. But I guess he relies on me to, let's say, keep the company together. And we know it's a marathon, so like I'm the one, providing the water, fresh towels, whatever you need to go out there, and you have to think about how to manage the business because I'll take care of it. Yeah. And I think you have to kind of have that, let's say, dual roles to prepare for large fundraisings.
Okay. Tom, final word?
Yeah, I would say that there's a lot that goes in the fundraise, that the very best founders build a very good narrative and are very tactical about how they fundraise. And it's an art. So I think that's something that, when you're picking your kind of early stage investors, take that into consideration. All the way from like narrative, how you're creating FOMO, these are all things I think you need to kind of study carefully, and that will help you like accelerate your fundraisers.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for being there this afternoon, and
Awesome. All right, please, if you want to speak with any of the panelists, do so outside of this room. It's a small room. That's fine.
Okay.
You can start right here, and then I'll introduce you guys. Test, it's good. 1 minute, okay. 1 minute until we get started. Please come find your seats. No, I'm gonna introduce you. Yeah, I'll say you all at the same time, and then you can come on. It'd be weird because I'm gonna stand up there and you'd be sitting right behind me, so I'll do that first, and I'll bring you guys up. Do you know if they're going to have translators since it's in Spanish or no? Do you know? I don't know. Okay.
I've seen service in Spanish, but...
I'll just tell them.
Sí, no sabemos, ahora ya.
No. Vale.
Sobra.
Ya.
Tenemos un problema ahora con la ampliación.
No.
Hemos ido a los dos. Ya hemos estado con gente de Semana y pero estar en el de delante.
You have a timer here, so we'll let you know when
Only
time is up.
25, no, it's 30, no? The contract is 30, eh?
I'm not the boss.
What is the boss?
I think we're running behind.
Sit down.
No, I'm gonna introduce you.
Hay un foco allí que... ¿Qué es eso? Es un foco. Pues el sol.
All right, we ready to get started? Okay, so we just finished talking about financing superscale, really went back to persistence, delegation of responsibilities. When these incredible entrepreneurs were looking for capital, they're looking for international capital, but also the local piece is very important. They're looking at help with their strategic plans, and they want to make sure that there's a personal touch with people that they like. So we're going to change gears now and go into health and big data. So what we have an incredible group here that's going to be looking at what this means. So what does data do in healthcare? What is the importance of that? How has a change in digital impacted that? What are the outcomes and some of the challenges and barriers? This session will be in Spanish, just a heads up now. And with that, I will be introducing these incredible men. We will start with Santiago, who will be moderating the session. We have Roberto, we have Jaime, and David. So please, gentlemen, join me on stage. Please give them a big round of applause, please.
Buenas tardes. ¿Se oye bien, no? Sí, perfecto. Después de esta presentación cosmogónica que nos han hecho, voy a presentar a los participantes. Roberto Bravo, consejero delegado y fundador de Persevivar, una compañía que trabaja con gestión de datos clínicos desde hace años, española, interesante, potente, con futuro. David Lavajo tiene un recorrido largo en el mundo de la salud, estuvo llevándola en unidad de salud de Telefónica, ahora lleva la unidad de Health en General Electric para todo el sur de Europa. Y Jaime del Barrio, médico, fue consejero de Sanidad del País Vasco, luego estuvo en Roche, luego en Roche y luego en Iguay, ¿lo digo bien? Y además es consejero de la Health también, y yo soy Santiago de Torres, soy médico también, presido la compañía Health y he estado en varias posiciones en la administración pública sobre temas de salud. El tema que nos trae hoy aquí a esta sesión es qué está pasando con la gestión de los datos en el mundo de la salud, cómo está cambiando la salud gracias a la aportación de la gestión de datos, qué pasa con la inteligencia artificial, qué pasa con el uso de algoritmos, qué pasa con la gestión de los datos y el tema del control de los mismos y la privacidad de los pacientes. Este cambio de paradigma de la salud digital va a cambiar mucho la forma que tenemos de atender los problemas de salud. Estamos haciendo ya diagnósticos automatizados con software para pruebas de triaje diagnóstica, fondos de ojo para posibles retinopatías de diabéticos, mamografías de triaje, electrocardiogramas de triaje. Usamos ya software que permite discernir entre está bien, es patológico o es fisiológico. Usamos la gestión de los datos para obtener sistemas expertos diagnósticos. Llegamos a diagnósticos muy precisos, por ejemplo, de oncológicos, de cáncer, donde a través de la genómica ponemos muchos adjetivos a un cáncer y cuando tenemos el pronóstico muy ajustado, empezaremos a usar Big Data para que bajo ese pronóstico, ese diagnóstico tan ajustado, el sistema nos dé pronóstico y tratamiento. El futuro de la salud pasa también por las matemáticas, cada vez más. El futuro de la salud pasa por los matemáticos, por los ingenieros biomédicos, por los bioestadísticos, porque, insisto, el futuro es un futuro de diagnósticos de precisión, antes llamábamos personalizados, son de precisión, cada uno con su mejor diagnóstico, y cuanto más preciso sea el diagnóstico que obtengamos, más fácil será, mediante sistemas Big Data y sistemas expertos, concluir qué pronóstico y qué tratamiento corresponde para cada patología y para cada paciente, ¿no? Vamos a empezar haciendo una pregunta abierta a los tres panelistas que me acompañan, que básicamente es cómo creéis vosotros que beneficia al desarrollo de la salud, al proceso de la sanidad que estamos en este país, la gestión de los datos. ¿Cómo ha irrumpido de golpe en nuestra realidad y cómo nos encontramos ahora que el futuro de la salud será una buena gestión de los datos que tenemos? Empieza quien quiera, igual tú, Roberto.
Bien.
Si quieres, porque tú gestionas datos sobre todo, ¿no?
¿Perdón?
¿Tú gestionas datos?
Yo gestiono, perdón, yo gestiono datos, sí. Bien, en realidad casi todo lo que has expuesto ya se está aplicando en la salud, ¿no? Y en el manejo de datos. Nuestra visión es más la de una startup, ¿no? Ese es el ecosistema en el que nosotros estamos, trabajando con compañías farmacéuticas, centros hospitalarios, etc. Entonces, desde ahí, ¿no? Desde esa visión, nosotros vemos cómo, por supuesto, la tecnología para gestionar datos ya se está aplicando a no sé, diagnóstico remoto, tú lo conoces muy bien por tu compañía, detección automática de tumores en tiempo real, no sé, al hacer una endoscopio utilizando Deep Learning, o utilizar cadenas de bloques para garantizar la cadena de suministros de medicamentos, o algoritmos, mencionabas antes, ¿no? Todo esto que estoy diciendo son compañías que se está aplicando en España y que los pacientes ya se están beneficiando de ellos. Algoritmo para hacer clasificación de arritmias y indicar pues, la terapia más apropiada. Algoritmos para hacer una aceleración del drug discovery, ¿no? Del descubrimiento de nuevos fármacos. Todo eso, además, lo están utilizando, por ejemplo, las compañías farmacéuticas, ¿no? Esto es muy interesante para añadir valor a sus productos. Es decir, ya no solo se comercializa un fármaco o un dispositivo médico, sino que además se le añade esa capa de valor que, por ejemplo, sí son especialistas, desde luego, en esto, ¿no? Lo cual hace que aquel fármaco vaya a ser mucho más eficaz, no solamente por la terapia, sino por esa gestión de datos que se está haciendo. Pero como aquí, y tenemos poco tiempo, pero entiendo que habrá bastantes emprendedores, hay tres aspectos que a nosotros nos preocupan fundamentalmente, ¿no? Y en los que creo que los emprendedores necesitamos poner muchísima más energía en este momento, porque tenemos unos algoritmos fantásticos que hacen absolutamente todo, pero por ejemplo nosotros nos damos cuenta de que necesitamos un data lake o unos data lakes clínicos de muchísima más calidad. Hacemos mucho esfuerzo en desarrollar unos algoritmos fantásticos, pero muchas veces no hacemos tanto esfuerzo en crear esas colecciones de datos que tengan suficiente calidad. Me da igual si es información estructurada, desestructurada, como sea, pero es muy importante. Un segundo aspecto para nosotros muy importante es que la tecnología que estamos desarrollando, igual que a un fármaco se le pide resultados, etcétera, a la tecnología muchas veces, algoritmos y demás, no se nos está pidiendo indicadores que aquello está teniendo un impacto en la vida del paciente y teniendo un impacto en la optimización del proceso asistencial. Por lo tanto, me parece muy importante también que nuestros esfuerzos vayan hacia ahí. Y, por último, la experiencia del paciente, que es una información muy importante, no se está considerando de momento, porque seguramente había otras prioridades, ¿no? Como un elemento relevante también a la hora de aplicar la terapia apropiada, etcétera, y ver realmente cuál está siendo el resultado en ese paciente más allá de lo que nos dice pues una analítica y demás. Así que no me extiendo más.
Muchas gracias,
Nada.
Roberto. Jaime, además, no lo he dicho, Jaime del Barrio es presidente de la Asociación Española de Salud Digital y tiene desde esa posición una visión bastante amplia y multidisciplinar de lo que estamos hablando. Jaime, ¿cómo lo ves tú esto?
Bueno, yo en primer lugar preguntaría a la sala si hay alguien en la sala que no tenga un móvil o hay alguien en la sala que no le importa la salud. Bueno, pues con ese binomio el 100% de la población ahora mismo nos interesa. Y si hay datos, los datos están en el cuerpo humano. O sea, la mayor plataforma ahora mismo de datos es el cuerpo humano. Viene en su genotipo, viene en su fenotipo. ¿Y qué pasa cuando eres portador la mayor plataforma de datos? Pues que eres de interés. ¿Para quién? Para quien gestiona datos. Antes se ha dicho que las biofarmas investigan. Pero si yo les pregunto quién creen que investiga desde hace 2 años más en nuevas moléculas, ¿quiénes creen ustedes que son? Las 7 grandes industrias tecnológicas. Desde hace 7 años ya, perdón, desde hace 2 años ya, las 7 grandes industrias tecnológicas están investigando más en nuevas moléculas que las 10 grandes farmas. ¿Esto qué ocurre? ¿Y cuál es el interés? El interés es que la muestra es el 100% de la población. Cuando hablamos de salud, bienestar, calidad de vida, y ya vivimos cerca de 100 años de expectativa. pero también es diagnóstico y tratamiento y prevención de las enfermedades. Es decir, el 100% de la población ahora mismo es de interés en una economía de datos. A la pregunta, ¿cómo está todo esto? Pues está un poquito, podría estar mejor, podría estar muchísimo mejor. ¿Qué quiero decir con ello? Tenemos un sistema nacional de salud en todos los indicadores y en todas las clasificaciones internacionales de los mejores del mundo, pero no nos equivoquemos, estamos viviendo de rentas. Muchos de estos indicadores todavía no han incorporado muchas de las cosas que estamos hablando aquí. Dicho todo eso, ahora mismo a velocidad crucero, con tecnología disruptiva y de manera global, se está entrando a saco en el mundo de la salud por el interés de sus datos. En el mundo de la biofarma ya el valor no está en los medicamentos o está en los medical devices, está en los datos. Entonces, quien tenga eso, indudablemente en los próximos años marcará un poco el ritmo en todo lo que es soluciones a temas de salud. Hay dos cuestiones que quería también en esta introducción decir. En el mundo de la salud no hay atajos. Es decir, ahora mismo estamos asistiendo a una inflación de soluciones, de algoritmos, como decía Roberto, teóricamente que se supone que van a responder a alguna de las preguntas que nos preocupan como ciudadanos, como pacientes. La mayoría, hoy por hoy, todavía no responden a estas preguntas, pero están en ello. Están en ello, las hipótesis son correctas y están aprendiendo además. Están aprendiendo como están aprendiendo otro tipo de soluciones de otros sectores. Pero sí que es verdad, como les decía, que no hay atajos y aquí tiene que haber al lado una validación clínica y tiene que haber una regulación, una aprobación, una ética, una legalidad que haga que esa solución sea la adecuada. En este sentido, simplemente un apunte. Ahora mismo hay más de 325.000 apps de salud. Si les pregunto cuántas tienen ustedes descargadas, seguro que la media no pasaría de 5 o 6. De esas 325.000, solamente 41 son responsables del 50% de las descargas. El resto, de momento, no están aportando valor al mundo de la salud. Luego, por lo tanto, todo esto está muy bien. La salud, ya les digo que ahora mismo es el principal interés en una economía de datos, pero todavía tenemos que andar bastante. Y la segunda cuestión también que quería decir antes de terminar esta introducción es, somos interesantes a nivel individual y a nivel colectivo. Es decir, a nivel individual, como les decía, el cuerpo humano es el mayor reservorio de datos, pero también los sistemas sanitarios como el nuestro son ahora mismo de mucho interés. Tenemos un sistema sanitario bueno, tenemos un sistema sanitario que tiene datos, pero bien es verdad que todavía queda pendiente la ordenación, clasificación, optimización y sacar valor a todos estos datos que tenemos. Y las estructuras y la formación que tenemos los profesionales del sector no está adecuada a este nuevo paradigma. Por lo tanto, el reto ahora mismo sería adecuar todo esto a la nueva realidad, que es muy diferente. Y si no lo hacemos en el sector, alguien lo hará y ya saben ustedes quién.
David.
Fenomenal. Yo diría, Santiago, más que hacernos la pregunta de dónde los datos y las soluciones de datos pueden aportar valor a la sanidad, a los sistemas sanitarios, es dónde no. Dónde no, porque realmente son de aplicación y aportan valor en todas las partes de las organizaciones y en todas las facetas de la sanidad que tenemos. Desde temas puramente más operacionales y organizativos, cosas como, en vez de darte una cita para que vayas al cardiólogo el primer slot que tengo libre, voy a buscar cuál es el slot que te conviene mejor, al que más probablemente no vas a faltar, teniendo en cuenta dónde vives, teniendo en cuenta la edad que tienes, teniendo en cuenta cuánto tiempo llevas esperando la cita, teniendo en cuenta si hay partido del Madrid o no hay partido del Madrid, y con todo eso pasar a hacer una gestión inteligente de las citas, ¿no? Estas soluciones ya están disponibles, no son ciencia ficción, como decía Roberto, lo que pasa es que todavía no las estamos aplicando. Ahí es donde tenemos uno de los grandes retos. Cosas sencillamente es como, ¿podemos predecir la carga de trabajo que va a tener un hospital en un quirófano? Si le hacéis esta pregunta a cualquier gerente de cualquier hospital de España, te va a decir que cuándo puedo tener algo que me diga efectivamente cuál va a ser mi carga de trabajo en quirófano en 3 meses. Porque si lo sé que aquí voy a tener un pico, no voy a tener quirófanos suficientes, puedo adelantar cirugía programada, aplanar esa curva de carga de trabajo y reducir así listas de espera y mejorar la experiencia del paciente y poder atender urgencias que de otra manera no puedo, ¿no? Esas soluciones, como digo, están disponibles, lo que tenemos que hacer es ponerlas en marcha, ¿no? Además, luego tenemos la faceta clínica, que es, por un lado, la más interesante y a veces la que más miedo da, en cierto modo, ¿no? Que es decir, ¿podemos de verdad usar los datos para llegar a conclusiones clínicas? Hay quien dice que no. La realidad es que nos dice que sí, ¿no? Y la realidad no la decimos nosotros, la realidad la dice la sociedad científica, la realidad la dice la FDA en Estados Unidos o la Comunidad Europea aquí en Europa, ¿no? Y ya se están liberando algoritmos que, por ejemplo, son capaces con una placa de tórax automáticamente identificar un neumotórax sin que lo tenga que ver un radiólogo, sin que lo tenga que ver un clínico. ¿Esto para qué? ¿Para despedir a todos los radiólogos? No. El problema es que no tenemos radiólogos, y es solo un ejemplo. Y no es que no tengamos radiólogos en África o no tengamos radiólogos en China, es que, por ejemplo, no tenemos radiólogos en el Reino Unido. Y esto es una realidad, y ahora con el Brexit mucho más. Hay un problema enorme de carencia de profesionales en toda Europa. Y eso está provocando que haya muchas pruebas diagnósticas, tratamientos y, al final, mucha atención al paciente que no se está pudiendo desarrollar como se debería. Y es ahí donde podemos utilizar los datos no para sustituir a ningún médico, sino para sustituir esas actividades y esas tareas banales de los médicos y, por lo tanto, que los médicos y profesionales se puedan focalizar en lo que de verdad importa, allí donde de verdad aportan valor, ¿no? Entonces, claramente, yo creo que tiene unas utilidades tremendas y unos beneficios tremendos. Lo que tenemos es que, de verdad, poner tanto las organizaciones privadas como públicas a andar este camino.
Fíjate,
Todavía,
David,
digamos, estamos en el primer paso.
Fíjate, David, sobre lo que planteaba David ahora del déficit de radiólogos, cómo la tecnología nos permite no resolver, pero sí, de alguna manera, disminuir el impacto negativo. Una de las cosas que hacemos en ATRIS, esto no es una cuña publicitaria, nosotros lo que hacemos es, imagínense ustedes que esta noche uno de ustedes tiene un accidente de tráfico, va a un centro de Madrid, le hacen una resonancia magnética, un TAC, la imagen la elevamos al cloud, el servidor lo tenemos en Berlín, la imagen la enviamos a Medellín o Bogotá, ahí es tarde, aquí es noche, ahí tenemos radiólogos con título español que se formaron aquí, informan la imagen, en menos de una hora el informe llega al Hospital de Madrid, le dice al médico de puerta lo que tiene el informe que ha recibido, con un 900 que si el médico de Madrid quiere hablar con el que ha hecho el informe del TAC, llama y contesta el médico en Medellín, y de esta manera conseguimos disminuir el impacto de déficit de radiólogos que hay en nuestro país, ¿no? Con un procedimiento de, obviamente, encriptación de datos, como no puede ser de otra manera, porque la ley de protección de datos protege todo esto, pero gracias a la tecnología estamos intentando disminuir este déficit de especialistas que decía David. Y esto me da pie a la siguiente pregunta breve que quería plantear, que es decir, España es una potencia en lo que hacemos, estamos muy atrás de otros países de la Unión Europea. ¿Qué vemos nosotros cuando viajamos por Europa o por Estados Unidos en relación a nuestro país? Y aquí sí que el primero que quiera contestar o quiera apuntar algo, porque tenemos 8 minutos 23 segundos.
A ver, España tiene una materia prima excelente. Excelente. Es decir, en todos los grandes proyectos hay españoles involucrados de una u otra manera. Y sí hay pequeñas startups emergentes haciendo cosas tremendamente interesantes, ¿no? En el medio quizás que a mí más me toca profesionalmente, que es el medio de la imagen, hay muchas startups nacidas en este país que ahora mismo están en boca de los circuitos internacionales, ¿no? Donde estamos fallando estrepitosamente en hacer crecer ese tejido de innovación que tenemos. No conseguimos, frente a otras regiones como Israel, donde tengo también mucha actividad profesional, no conseguimos llevar esos proyectos embrionarios con muchísimo talento y con muchísimo potencial a realmente despuntar de una manera brillante en el mercado y conectar con el tejido empresarial y poder crecer. Ahí tenemos claramente un gap muy grande en el que tenemos que trabajar y donde estamos muy por detrás, evidentemente, de Israel, de Estados Unidos, del Reino Unido, etcétera.
Yo, conectar con lo que comentas, David, nuestra visión es bastante similar. Además, hemos padecido podría seguramente compartir uno de los motivos por los que ese tejido no crece y puede estar vinculado también con la capacidad de inversión que existe en España. Pero en general yo a cualquier reunión a la que asisto internacional y demás con clientes, siempre hay compañías españolas que están proporcionando servicios y demás en este ámbito. Yo veo la situación, por lo menos en nuestro entorno, o sea, veo a España compitiendo de tú a tú con el resto de países. Mi impresión personal es que está muy ligado a, o sea, que está muy ligado a la regulación, ¿no? Si nosotros estamos en un marco europeo donde tenemos una regulación común, etcétera, como digo, desarrollo de la tecnología, todos lo podemos hacer, pero ese paraguas que nos da la regulación nos permite competir de tú a tú en igualdad de oportunidades, ¿no? De hecho, de nuevo, un mensaje para los emprendedores. Yo soy ingeniero informático, pero posiblemente el 35% de mi tiempo le dedico a aspectos regulatorios, a reuniones con abogados, etcétera. No hay una reunión últimamente con un cliente nuestro en el que no haya un abogado presente hablando de privacidad, seguridad, etcétera. Un porcentaje muy importante de nuestro tiempo se nos va en procesos de risk assessment. Antes nos hacían risk assessment para simplemente para ser proveedor de una compañía. En este momento es cada proyecto que nosotros llevamos a cabo con una compañía es un nuevo proceso de risk assessment sobre qué estamos haciendo con los datos, ¿no? Entonces, bueno, el mensaje es que uno tiene que ser consciente de que la tecnología posiblemente te va a llevar un 60%, ¿no? Innovarla, desarrollarla y demás, pero vas a tener que dedicar mucho tiempo a aspectos regulatorios. Y en mi opinión, lo que va a marcar la diferencia en el futuro en lo que va a hacer a un país más o menos competitivo en este entorno son las personas. Y esto creo que lo oímos todos. Las personas, quiero decir, la capacidad que va a tener una empresa o un país para captar talento y para retener talento. No creo que haya un ámbito de mayor rotación y de mayor demanda de profesionales que la tecnología aplicada a la salud. Yo doy clase en un grado de ingeniería y evidentemente no van a salir, o sea, no salen suficientes alumnos en las universidades como para cubrir toda la demanda que existe y es brutal. Al margen de eso, bueno, hay que ser capaces de captar ese talento de fuera y hay que ser muy conscientes de que la rotación es elevadísima. Retener a una persona, a un data scientist, a un ingeniero informático, a un bioingeniero durante más de 2 años es todo un reto, no solo para nosotros, sino para allí y para cualquier compañía, ¿no? Entonces, para mí el reto va a estar en cómo somos capaces, no lo sé, conocemos iniciativas en el País Vasco, por ejemplo, tiene una iniciativa fantástica para captar talento, traer personas de fuera de España, etcétera, y les está funcionando bien. Entonces, para mí esto va a marcar la diferencia.
Jaime.
Muy brevemente, porque no hay tiempo. Solamente una frase y dos visualizaciones. La frase estaría, desde dentro nos lamentamos mucho de cómo estamos. Bien es verdad que cuando salimos nos damos cuenta que estamos mucho mejor de lo que... Pero eso no nos quita para que sigamos lamentándonos dentro, porque podríamos estar mucho mejor en muchas cosas. Y ahí lanzo solamente 2 imágenes. Una, humanización, tecnología, parece que son antagónicos cuando son complementarios. El titular es de 10 minutos que dedica el médico de atención primaria, ahora quiere 12. Solo le falta decir de calidad. ¿Por qué? Porque el 80% de lo que hace lo dedica a hacer funciones administrativas. Por primera vez en atención primaria hay demoras, por primera vez, es decir, la tecnología ha venido para ayudar y hacer sostenible al sistema y hacer que el paciente esté atendido en tiempo y en forma. La segunda imagen, si ahora mismo vamos a un servicio de urgencias de un gran hospital, veremos colas interminables, ya no digo nada cuando hay brotes de gripe o de lo que sea. Que sepan ustedes que en España hay 21,5 millones de urgencias al año, de las cuales el 11,5 ingresan. La mayoría de estos ingresos podrían ir directamente de su domicilio a la planta, sin pasar por urgencias. Lo que decíamos antes, es decir, si su móvil ahora mismo tuviese respuestas a sus necesidades y estuviese integrado todo aquí, como está en otros sectores, consumo, banca, etcétera, etcétera, muchísimas de estas ineficiencias de reacciones adversas, de hospitalizaciones, de tiempos de demora, de duplicidades en pruebas diagnósticas, el 52% de las pruebas diagnósticas se repiten, se duplican. Imagínense la cantidad. Si entra ya la inteligencia artificial, Big Data, blockchain, todo esto, simplemente en lo que hacemos, hacerlo mejor con las nuevas tecnologías, indudablemente seguiríamos estando en un sistema sanitario excelente como el que tenemos, pero apostando de futuro con realidades del presente.
En conclusión, lo que podríamos afirmar es que esto es imparable, que en la gestión de los datos que la salud nos va aportando va a mejorar mucho el abordaje de esta salud, que hay un tema de humanización, como decía bien Jaime ahora, yo creo que es verdad que los datos permitirán que el médico tenga más tiempo para ver a su paciente, que muchos que pasan por los sistemas públicos y privados de especializados no tenían ni que pasar, seguramente podían tratarse, orientarse de otra manera, que tenemos mecanismos de autodiagnóstico cada vez más precisos, que tendremos nuestra historia clínica en nuestro móvil, que podremos ir a un centro y decir, esta es mi historia clínica, vea al doctor y el médico podrá ver lo que uno tiene o deja de tener, que la gestión de los datos nos permitirá hacer diagnósticos mucho más precisos, pronósticos y tratamientos mucho más específicos, y que en definitiva esta es un área de un futuro inmenso, inmenso. Yo siempre animo a la gente a que estudie bioinformática, bioestadística, medicina, pero con un componente, el médico del futuro que no sepa gestionar datos, no entienda bien qué es lo que tiene que pedirle al bioinformático que le analice, que le estudie, que le considere, no tendrá capacidad de mejorar. El médico tiene que saber qué le pide al que le va a gestionar esos sistemas expertos o esos algoritmos. Tiene que entender qué potencialidad tiene eso, no puede negarse eso, ¿no? Es un tema generacional, tal vez sí, pero en cualquier caso el futuro pasa por todo ello. A la gente que le gusta la salud, que entienda que en el futuro deberá saber de sanidad, de salud, de patología y mucho, mucho, mucho de gestión de datos. Son las 00, muchas gracias y espero que haya sido interesante.
Amazing. All right, do you want to get a picture of you guys together? Yes. Okay, let's do that. Please, if you want to talk to any of the speakers, do so outside because we have another panel coming as well. All right? 1, 2, 3. Muy bien. All right. Thank you very much. We have one session left this afternoon. All right. Are we ready to get started or not yet? Ready to get started? Okay, perfect. So we just came from talking about big data and the impact on the future of health. We're going to stay on the health track for this last session of the afternoon, talking about longevity. So what does that mean? We're thinking about things like health span and monitoring, the impact of genetics on a long life, and how to use big data. So we'll be talking a little bit about big data, moving in more practical ways as it impacts on longevity. So we have a great panel to end the evening. And first we will have Maria, who is our moderator. And then we have Irene and Michael as our panelists. Their names and companies are up on the board, so go ahead and let's get started.
Okay, thank you.
On the other side. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I assume that you will want to live more than 100 years in our optimal, healthy conditions. That's why you are in this panel. Some free chairs, but okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you for participating in the health track of South Summit. We are delighted that you have agreed to cover the discussion today about longevity. In this roundtable, we have Irene Sanchez, and let me tell you a little bit about Irene. Well, Irene Sanchez is EIT Health Spain Business Creation Manager. She is a pharmacist with a master's degree in creation and management of innovative technology-based companies from University of Barcelona. And she has completed several specialized training programs in management, sales, and venture capital investment. She's mentor in several startups developing health solutions for the European and LATAM markets, and currently she is managing the EIT Health Acceleration Program for Spain. Well, in the last year, Irene has worked closely with more than 100 Spanish startups to foster innovation and in the health field, provide advice and guidelines, and promote their success. Thank you for being here, Irene. Maybe after you can tell us a little bit more about EIT Health. Okay.
Thank you.
And we have also Michael Year. He is co-founder of Humanity. Well, really, he wanted to be an astronaut in his childhood.
Failed an
okay.
astronaut.
Failed
for now.
Maybe you are always in the moon. Okay. Well, he went to Moscow and learned the internet industry from the ground up while building Badu. I think you all know Badu. In Moscow and London, piece by piece, scaling from 0 to 7 million users. So he knows a little bit about internet business. He moved on to build Anchor Free, to the lead protector of the internet with over 700 million users and hundreds of millions in yearly subscription revenue. Well, after he sold the company, now he's embarked on the mission of his life to provide the superpower of good health to everyone by co-founding. So he will tell us a little bit more about this. Okay, longevity. How can we do to slow it? This is the big question. I have good news and bad news for you. The bad news, we all will die. No serious scientists believe in mortality. Good news, we are closer to assuring healthier old age than ever before. So this is the good news. Target aging as a root cause of all related disorders, we could say most important risk factor of all major disease is time. Some scientists hope one day to treat all of them at once by targeting aging itself as a disease. So I would like to ask Irene and Michael, must recognized aging as a treatable indication, as an illness? What do you think about that?
According to my understanding, longevity or health span is not per se a disease. I mean, the problem related with longevity is the chronic diseases that you have at that point. So as I already commented before, for us, from the public or the institutional point of view, it's rather better to talk about healthy lives, healthy years, from the point of birth until you are with a big charge of chronic diseases, rather than to talk about lifespan. So if you, for example, compare the ranking where you compare all the European countries, lifespan, Spain is the first one. Okay, we are about 85 years. But then if you compare the quality of life, I mean, how many years we are in good shape, We are around 66 years, which means that from 66 until 85, we are not in good shape, no? In general, good shape. We have chronic diseases, not one, not two. Maybe we are disabled. So for public institutions, this is the target, how we can manage to live the majority of our life in good shape, in good conditions. And this is a lot related with prevention, diagnostic, personalized, patient in the center. So that's so-called 4P, no, in medicine.
Thank you, Irene. And what do you think, Michael, about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason why people ask that question, at least when I'm talking with scientists, is it's about funding. And so if you're, the reason why I got into this kind of like health span space is because I was looking at detection and screening, because I came from it from personal, had family members lost to cancer, and why aren't we screening everybody? When I started talking to the scientists, a lot of them were having to go through this dance, which was basically, we're going to do something to cure cancer, but actually we're not. We're going to go upstream of that in our lab, and we kind of have to almost lie to get our funding so that we can go upstream, because what we don't want to do is cure everybody of cancer and then everybody die 2 years later of heart disease, on average, right? And so I don't know if it's an indication or what needs to happen, but I think when people talk about that, the importance is like, how do we get funding flowing upstream to this more preventive, space, as opposed to just looking at these endpoints that really, when you get to the point where you have, late stage cancer, you're talking about trying to preserve your life for another couple years and your quality of life is very low. There's things we can do to keep people from that point. And so let's put more funding up there.
Okay. Yes, experts estimate that in 2020, chronic disease will be responsible for almost 3/4 of the deaths in the world. So it's not about lifespan, but healthy lifespan.
Exactly.
Okay. I would like to suggest a discussion for you also. It's about, Jane Calment was a French woman who died in 1997 at the age of 122 years old.
Not bad.
Not bad. Good genetic, maybe. We will talk about genetic afterwards. In 2040, the average lifespan for people in Spain project to pass Japan as a country with the longest lived citizens that will reach to 86 years old. Okay. In 2016, a team of scientists declared that the upper limit to be is 115 years. But in last June, researchers reviewing death rates among elderly Italians suggested that there may be no limit at all. Well, the discussion here is maybe the question is basic biology, if the cells are able of going through these 100 years. But is genetic a key modifier for longevity? What do you think about this?
I think it's a bunch of things. There is the genetics for sure, telomeres. In fact, at the DNA, the last region of the DNA. But I think there are other factors like environment, lifestyle. And once you see those rankings that everybody's showing, the countries with better lifestyles or with better environments are the ones that are ranked better. So I think it's a mix in between. So this is why all the prevention is going on those three directions for sure. You need to detect the disease, but at the same time, you need to promote healthy habits, and you need to promote smart aging, because this is what it is at the end. So I think it's a mix of the three factors. Genetics is important, but it's, according to my understanding, it's not the only main key driver on that. It's
Michael?
Agree.
Thanks.
I mean, to put it in a framework, so yeah, you have your genetics, which then kind of is your predisposition to things. And then you have your kind of epigenetics, what's wrapping the genetics, and then you have the proteins that are created, and those epigenetics that can turn on and off genes can get affected by everything, especially environment, especially diet, especially things like that. And so, yeah, you cannot predict from just taking someone's, I have a hard drive with my 3 billion letters, and it's not really going to tell me that much if I'm not monitoring the other things, right? I think what we do want to get to, and something that we're concentrating on, is we want to get the monitoring, out to more people, because what we're actually seeing, because of, on one side you have Facebook, and they're like monitoring all our stuff, and it's like horrible what some people do with that data, but what they're seeing on the health side is that if you have generally frequent and pretty high fidelity data on someone, whether it be their accelerometer on their phone or an ECG or anything that they might be able to keep a high frequency of measurement, you can actually detect things quite a bit upstream, and you can then take, even if we don't know exactly what those interventions, what those actions should be now, if you're monitoring it, you can then start to see what actions might be helping and which actions are hurting. If you're not monitoring, you end up with this very general population kind of advice is exactly that, right? You end up, the reason why, I don't know if you guys track this, but everybody knows coffee's good for you, coffee's horrible for you, wine's good for you, wine's horrible for you. We want to believe the first one on both of those. But then red meats, just, everybody's coming out with red meat now. But what no one's actually talking about is if you don't have certain proteins in your blood that dissolve lipids, and you go on a keto diet or you start eating a bunch of red meat, you're going to die. You're going to die pretty quickly. But if you have those proteins, you're probably going to be fine. And you can eat as much red meat as not on the environmental side, but on the health side, you can eat as much red meat as you want, right? And so I think we do have the ability to monitor people directly now, and we need to start using that as opposed to the current system, which is trying to apply general population advice, which isn't working as well as we want it to.
And is that the way in which humanity is working?
Yeah, and yeah, I guess I would be, yeah. I mean, not to kind of give a advertisement for the company, but yeah, that's why we're building what we're building is, yeah, because we believe in that concept. So.
Okay. And is EIT Health working also in that healthy life and habits?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
Because
EIT Health
is an European institution.
Yeah. EIT is the European Institute of Innovation and Technology that depends from the European Commission, and the mandate is clear. We need to have solutions, which solutions for us mean innovation projects, supporting startups that works to improve the healthcare systems, because in Europe we have a problem. We will collapse one day or another, so we need to be prepared for that before, upfront. We need to support smart aging. As I said, this is one of our mandates, smart aging, because the healthcare system probably might be collapsed for several reasons, but one of them is the fact that the population is getting older and older, and the chronic diseases that this brings. And the last one is promoting healthy habits for all the population. I mean, we have a lot of information. All of us know that we need to walk, 10,000 steps because my iPhone, or, okay, we know that we need to eat, not ultra-processed, but at the end of the day, today I ate a lot of ultra-processed. So the European Commission has the mission to do that and to promote that. For sure, we also promote therapies and we promote other things. So this is our main job in EIT Health. And in our case in Spain, we are doing that in Spain, which is better even for us.
Okay.
I think it's worth just, I think when you start talking about these things, and anybody that's been in healthcare conversations long enough, it's about, really a lot of it comes down to behavior change, like you're saying. And what we see, so it's good to combine different sectors. I generally see that in my career. When you put in consumer tech, it's all about nudging people with little feedback loops and little, you did this and this is what happened because of that, and so you do it some more. I think that's, people without that, it's very hard to say, hey, eat healthy for the next 20 years, and then hopefully it'll work out for you, right? So we need to come up with ways that we can actually give feedback loops to people, and I think digital is going to help with that.
Yeah, and in fact, if you've been in the Enlightened, we just saw a talk about how to learn to learn. So this is also changing a lot. So if you did, I don't know, whatever master 10 years ago, they said it's not useful anymore. In fact, it's not useful. If it's about marketing or if it's about science, it's not useful. When I did pharmacy 15 years ago, or if you did a PhD, the techniques, whatever, I mean, it's completely changing. So it's even rather more important to teach people to learn and to use data rather than to just give data. At least this is our point.
Okay, thank you. So, consideration of all the factors that can influence in health, well-being and illness, including emotional and mental and social, in addition to purely physical. All age-related diseases might be preventable. Precision health actually relies on the ability to assess disease risk at an individual level, detect early preclinical conditions, and initiate preventive medical strategies. All these medical strategies are possible. People that wish to access tools and novel diagnostics to change their approach to their health maintenance, how do you emphasize the digital systems, the devices, the tools, ownership of data, regular interaction, and telemedicine devices? Do you think that this is going to help to change this situation? Any, Michael, maybe?
This is your main topic, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on a bunch of stuff. I think, yes, we need to, I'll take like the last piece of that, because I think there's a lot there, but one of the things that we're seeing now, so I spent the last 5 years running the largest consumer VPN in the world, so it was all about privacy, security, keeping data safe. Spent actually last year hanging out with, I was lucky enough to hang out with Tim Berners-Lee for half the year, kind of going around the US trying to push for net neutrality. One of Tim's big projects in Boston is basically like how do you keep people, how do you allow people to own their data? And it sounds, say like 5 years ago, I think it sounded kind of pie in the sky, like everybody's going to have their little pot of data and they're going to plug it into things and then they're going to unplug it. But actually a lot of the data analysis, so what do we need? We need everybody to get monitored more. We need to make sure that they own their data and that their data doesn't get taken into some pool and then sold 5 times and they never see it and know what happens with it. But we also need, so on the, not the opposing side, but on the other side, we need to interrogate very large data sets together so that we can get learnings from them. And so those two forces for the longest time seemed opposed, but there's a lot of technology now that, and I think needs to be actually pushed forward by the EU and others that will put a little regulatory pressure on it, is that you actually, instead of siloing data, actually come up with a way where this data can be interrogated in a pooled fashion, but without that data ever leaving the person that owns it. And that technology does exist, and there's a bunch of data companies, big data companies that are looking at that. I think if we don't protect privacy, we will have too many concerns about measuring everybody, and that will slow down us actually helping people be healthier. And so you need to tackle two at the same time because that pressure will be too great. Like I know a lot of people that just, are you going to do your genetics? No. Do my genetics? Who's going to get that data? Like there's no way I'm doing that. So that we need to focus on that whole systemic thing. One of them is definitely pushing forward for more monitoring, but the other is actually how do we both get the goodness out of the data and protect it at the same time.
So we have to be the managers of our own health, or co-managers with the doctors?
Yeah, and I think, I mean, you can have, it's probably a conversation better over some beers, when you start talking about what's wrong with the healthcare system, but I think there's reasons why some people are not so engaged with their health, and some of that is because of the way the healthcare system is. So we need to address, people actually knowing that they can get their data, that they can get value out of their data, and then it's not just going to be someone else getting value out of it. I think that's important.
Yeah, I completely agree with Michael. I mean, the patient now is completely in the center of the system. So he needs to get access to the data, but then he needs to interpret this data. For sure, he can use Google, great, but this is not enough. No? I don't think a patient will log in Medline, MedPlus to search about it. So I think it's a combination. Sometimes, quite often, I receive two complaints, okay? When I pitch in front of physicians, they told me the technology of your startups, I mean the ones we support, will leave us without job. And I always say, not exactly. And I found a good example. My dad is an engineer. He did the degree with a rule and a pen. And suddenly, AutoCAD appears.
Yeah.
And he continued working. I mean, he's about to get retired. So the software, AutoCAD, is helping him for 30 years to avoid mistakes in calculations. This is one side. So professionals on one side, healthcare professionals doesn't need to be afraid about that, about the data, about IT, about softwares, because they are there to support, and they can be then healthcare professionals, people who take care of the patient. This is one side. On the other side, I also use a similar example, okay? If you want, I don't know, to change a room in your house, maybe you download an app, and you play to be an architect, okay? I put here the sofa, blah, blah, but then you go to an architect, and you say, hey, this is feasible. And if the architect says, no, it's not feasible because the bathroom is here, and you need to do 1,000, okay, you say, okay, I agree, it's not feasible. So if I have, I don't know, a blood disease, and I go to the physician and I say, no, sorry, I don't want to take an anticoagulant. He needs to tell me, no, you need it. But he needs to explain me why. You need to take this anticoagulant because you have a deficiency, whatever, of protein C, and explaining it. And I will manage this information, but I will be informed. I will be an informed patient. And this is the best solution. But to do that, the physician and the healthcare professionals needs time. And this time can be taken from a lot of things that they are doing now manually that they can be standardized with technology from medtech, digital health companies.
So information is a must, something that we need. And interpretation of the data also is a very important tool. Genetics, immunology, microbiota, all this information for the patient, for the person, to manage, to handle all this information. But do you think that this is for everybody? Genetics is very expensive. The information, being able of having time with the doctor to interpret all this data. How do you see in the future all these needs for everybody? Or maybe will be two classes, two different kind of medicines?
Hard question. Mike, do you have an idea? So I think that not all of us need the same kind of information and the same level of information. So for example, the majority of public health systems, regions in Spain, have an application, a mobile application, where you can download your electronic recipe.
Yeah.
But who is using that? I mean, how many people in the room is using the app that your autonomous community provide you to download the medical records? I mean, I tried to download it, but the password in Catalonia expires after 7 days. I'm always traveling, so I did not manage. So we have it, and I'm a tech person, more or less. Here I see a lot of people that looks like tech people, but we are not using those tools.
So it's a mindset?
Yeah, so at the end, we have a lot of information that we can share, but I'm not sure if all of us want to join all the data that we have available. So I think there are the minimum one we need to have, like, I don't know, you don't need to go to the physicians to take up the results of your analytics. I mean, you can download. If there is something in red with asterisk, then you go to the doctor office. If not, you are in good shape. Keep going, no? But I don't see like two kinds of healthcare systems or two levels or two status. I see one, but I see that the patient can filter which kind of information they are interested to see. About genetics, I leave the floor to Michael.
What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I think Yeah, I mean, user flow and everything is, yeah, the important thing is to have that data so that the user can like press one button and allow a particular application or something to use that data. And if it's not built in that way, then yeah, and ends up like no one using it. Now we're really keeping you guys from drinks and music. So I think we think about like radical inclusion a lot. So like the other side of that question is, I think we create what is it, Willy Wonka? Like we're the music makers, we're the singers of songs. Was it? Like we create the world around us, and if we want to create a ton of $500,000 health things, then we will. But we should actually, if there's no way to get that price out of those things, then we should be called out for it. There should be like a social norm that hey, it's great that you discovered that, but how are you going to actually get that to people?
Yeah.
You know, because you built something for people, how are you actually going to get it to them? That needs to be part of the equation. The good news is that we don't need to count on everybody being on their best behavior. I think most of what we're seeing with data now is some of the cool stuff that we're getting is they have these longitudinal biobanks. Basically, different countries kind of track people for like 20, 30, 40 years. They, a bunch of them even have the serum, from the blood still frozen. They have the doctor's visits. They know this person got dementia, this person got breast cancer, this person got whatever. When you crunch down on those data sets, you don't end up with the answer that, hey, you need to measure the entire omics of the person, their genetics, you need to do $10,000 worth of tests. The answer is not that actually at all. What those data sets are telling us is that you can have like $25 worth of, say, blood markers at this point that are highly predictive of their core health. And obviously, if you want more understanding of causal relationships, you probably need to get more data. But as we get general data on, say, like 50,000, 100,000, a couple million people, you can start to extrapolate that and deliver that ability to monitor at a much lower price point to millions and then billions of people. In the end, we all know like everything ends up being distribution and concentration on that whole process from monitoring enough people at such a dense level and then extrapolating down so that we can deliver it to a lot of people, I think will be some of the coolest stuff that we see in the next few years, so that we stop talking about like, actually I won't name them, but like companies like $25,000, full body, whatever, and then only then can they tell you something. And it's just not how data works. It's not how it works. So.
Okay. And your conclusion, Irene?
It's more about healthy years of life rather than longevity itself, for me at least.
So maybe with some exercise every day and eating healthy food, we have 50% of the work done.
If you monitor yourself, I could tell you.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know if you have any question for Irene or Karen. We don't have time. Okay, sorry. Okay, thank you very much for being here. I hope you are here.